Okay, hello everyone, and good evening. Welcome to this session. I just need to confirm the attendance of our guests. And welcome to this session. My name is Yumika Oguns. Please let me know in the chat box if you can hear me clearly. Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Okay. So today's session, we are marking the International Day against drug abuse and illicit trafficking, and we have.
Yes, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, I was technical director of the NAFDAC project, and I was very much involved in the development and design of the intervention. Hopefully, you probably get to hear a few things about that. It kind of ties into what we are going to discuss today. So, yeah, but it's very difficult to talk about myself usually. So,
okay, I think you didn't do too bad. I think you didn't do too badly. Okay, so just a sec. All right, so I think we have a number of questions lined up for Andrew. So let's just go into that. And
can you give me a second? I have to come off my print and sprint by itself.
Okay. So just hold on. So that.
Sorry.
No problem. So in the chat box, I'm going to share the link to the YouTube live streaming for folks who might want to share with other people. So you can live stream with us there. All right, so let's just go right into it. Talking about the International Day against drug abuse and illicit trafficking. What exactly does that mean, and why is it important? I know most times we talk about drug abuse, but the other part, the illicit trafficking part, we don't really say so much about it. So what exactly does the day mean? Why are we having this conversation?
Yeah, I mean, there's a day for everything in the world. I think it was last week Sunday we celebrated Father's Day. Earlier in the year we celebrated Mother's Day, and obviously there's usually more than one Mother's Day every year. But generally, these days are set aside to commemorate or to focus in a special way on certain aspects of society. Sometimes it can be mothers, sometimes it's fathers, sometimes it's children, sometimes it's they're just different things. Sometimes it's on the earth, it's on the environment. There's lots of things that we focus on. It's World Health Day, but today is the day against substances and illicit trafficking. And generally, just time, just a day when the world comes together, to focus on global cooperation and action. So we kind of look at what needs to be done. Globally, there's lots of conversations taking place around this topic today. I was looking at Twitter earlier today, and I saw that the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, had given a statement, a long rundown about some things about substance use, and the UNODC director. So there's lots of, there's focus globally on this issue today. And you were mentioning something about illicit trafficking. So trafficking really is a movement of goods and sometimes people. So illicit trafficking is illicit movement of psychoactive substances. that's moving them to where they're not authorized, or moving substances that are not supposed to be moved, or moved by the wrong people to the wrong places or in the wrong circumstances. So today is just a day where we look at all of those things, and there's lots of activities planned around this just to focus clearly on how we can work together and the actions that we can actually take to narrow this down, to reduce the scourge of substance use.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much. You can just say hello. I think that's our second guest for today. And I'm not sure I mentioned this at the beginning, but the format we are taking for this session is to have Andrew's sessions first, then we have a Q&A session, then we go into Humphrey's story after that. So it's going to be like a build up to that. So stay with us, all right? Okay, so Andrew, second question. What do you think is the leading cause of drug abuse amongst young people?
Yeah, when people talk about causes, I like to always divide that into two clear things. So there's causes and then there's factors that promote. When I talk about causes, I'm looking at why do people do what they do, and that it's not always a simple question to answer, because for many things that we don't always have clear reasons why we do them. For many things we have clear reasons, but for many things we don't. But generally, people, I've seen this somewhere before, but I just like to phrase it in this way: people use drugs to feel good, to feel better, or to feel among. So there's the feeling good part. People can take drugs to relax, for example, to have a good time, to enjoy themselves, like people say, to feel better because they feel, well, I'm under lots of stress, so I just really need this to calm me down. I'm under lots of pressure or lots of stress, or I'm feeling ill, and this is a real issue. For example, there's been reports of some drug abuse of some drugs among people who suffer from specific pain conditions. And I don't want to go into the specifics here because of the wide group that we have here, but people who have used drugs to feel better medically, but that kind of turned into something else as time went on. So that's in the second class, to feel better. And then of course there's a third group of people who use drugs to feel among, they say in Nigeria, to belong. So and this is also a very key issue as well. Now, aside from that, we also want to talk about factors that promote substance use. So the first one, which is the most important one, I would think, it's drug availability. Well, it's most important because, even if you want to feel good or you want to feel better, you want to feel among, if there are no drugs to do that, if the substances are not available, that would never happen. Yeah, so that's one factor. But by itself, the availability of drug does not mean that people would use it. So that's something. So that's why I want to separate the causes and the factors that promote its use. Then of course we have issues that societies that promote drug use, and this happens most times inadvertently, in commercials, in advertorials, in movies, and all of these things where drug use is it's portrayed as something that is cool, something that is nice or something, and young people kind of buy into that. And obviously there's issues about ignorance, people not knowing what the problem is, and that's why this year's the theme of this year's day against drug abuse and illicit trafficking is very key. It is to share the facts on drugs. Shared facts on drugs save lives. So many people do not know what they do. So there's lots of ignorance.
That's actually, okay. Yeah. I
think
okay. Continue.
Okay, sorry. And ignorance kind of works two ways as well. So there's people who do not know, and then there are people who do not know that they do not know. So that's two things. So some people don't know, well, they just don't think about it. But then there are other people who think they know, but they don't know. So they do not know that they don't know. So that's a bigger problem. So people who have been feeding on myths, different, things that are untrue. They have been taught about these things. They have been told things that are untrue about substance use, and that's a very difficult population to work with, in a way, because they already have they have perceptions about substance use that are really not true. And then obviously we have issues about family and societal issues. I was reading a study earlier today. It showed that people who use drugs and to the level of addiction, they had weaker ties with their families and with societies. And there was also a research we did when I was doing my NYC, at my NYC camp, it's kind of funny, but it's a story about it. And I've actually published the story, the whole story behind that research. What we also did is also showed that people who came from families where broken families, of course, this is now very open to interpretation. What's the definition of broken and all of that kind of thing. But people who were from families that were not whole, in quotes, where father, mother, and family resided together, they were, of course, this is a survey, so people who resided in those families had a higher prevalence of substance use. So you cannot actually rule out the family, and of course, it's been touted over and over. The family is the bedrock of character formation, the bedrock of civilization.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much, Andrew. I think you gave us a whole lot of causes or possible causes for that. So, as young people, do you think now this is okay? I'm just going to ask anyway. Do you think mental pressure could contribute significantly, okay, to substance use? Because these days, most of the times when people talk about someone who's tired abusing drugs, or why the youth abusing drugs, we usually tie it to depression or some other things. So do you think that contributes significantly based on your research experience and all of that?
Well, it's a very difficult question, and I'll say why. Because in the first instance, we haven't defined what mental pressure is. It's difficult to tell. For example, are people abusing drugs because they're depressed, or they're depressed because they're abusing drugs? These two things can actually go either way. So it's not very straightforward. But in my own view, really, and this is very much my view. I'm not saying I'm actually quoting any research study, because this is it's a very I'm trying to be very careful here and stay quite right at the middle. It's not really about the mental pressure itself. It's about the response to mental pressure, how people deal with pressure. I think it was Shell Hans who was trying to characterize stress, and he said there's eustress and there's distress. So eustress it's a stressful situation, obviously, but it forces people to do better, to push themselves hard, to change their ways in order to cope. And then for some other people, it just causes them to unravel. It just kind of makes them, they just fall apart when they're dealing with it. So for me, I think it's not really about the mental stress. I mean, now, of course, this is very open to definition. How do we define mental stress? It's loss of job, mental stress. I mean, I'll just say, yeah, that's quite true. Is writing a very difficult exam mental stress? Well, yes, that's true. But it depends on how people see life. So some people look at life as a challenge. People look at life, take life as a challenge that they would have to rise up to. But then for some other people, they look at life as, oh, they're out to get me. And or people just do not have adequate skills to deal with the issues of life. So for me, I think it's really much about the adequate coping mechanism. So the impact on substance use can be significant amongst people who have unhealthy coping mechanism. So people who are not, and of course, this again comes down to lots about perception. People who have an unhealthy worldview. So as human beings, we have to be able to look at the world realistically. I mean, obviously, nobody's jollof rice or sliced bread or something like that. And we have to kind of internalize that as well. I know that life knocks you down and people fail, but then you get up and go right again. I'm going to tell this story if you let me. It's a very short story. But it just kind of shows how life can actually knock people around. It was about Henry Kissinger. He was one time Secretary of State of the United States. And I think he was the first Secretary of State. He was one of the people who actually brought the US and China together again, communication between the US and China after the Cold War era. And there was this story that was told about him. He employed, this guy from Harvard, a professor from Harvard, to write policies and everything for the State Department. So the first assignment he gave to this young guy, brilliant professor, so, well, write policy about how we're going to deal with China or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was anymore. But this fellow wrote this stuff, this is a Harvard trained guy, he wrote it down and then he submitted it to Henry Kissinger. And then the next morning he came back and it was on his desk with a post-it note. Is this the best you can do? well, man, let's roll up his sleeves. Well, I'm gonna try to work about it. You know, I touched up a few things and he worked on it more. Submitted it again, and then the next morning he came to work, was on his desk again. Is this the best you can do? Well, now this guy was getting really worked up. I'm an Harvard grad. I'm messing myself up here. So I took it home, didn't do anything the whole weekend, just working on it, you know, reordered everything and tried to make sure that this was looking really good. And he thought to himself on Sunday night, well, yeah, this is good stuff. Just, you know, nobody can reject this. And then I submitted it on Monday morning. And then on Tuesday morning again, there was a post-it note again. Is this the best you can do? Well, now this guy was enraged. He was pissed off. And I went to Henry Kissinger's office. What do you mean? And Henry Kissinger was like, is this the best you can do? And start on the dump the paper. Yes, this is the best I can do. And Henry Kissinger said, very well then, this time I will read it. Now, the problem is he hadn't even read it at all. And that's life can be a bit like that. So you have to keep pushing, and then you want to say, well, yes, this is the best I can do. So I think it's really much about how people look at mental pressure, how they try to cope with it. That's really the issue. So I think the focus should be on coping mechanism rather than the mental pressure itself. Because for some people, loss of job makes them to lose everything. While for others, it's the start of creativity. Necessity is the mother of invention for some people. For other people, it's the beginning of crime. You know, so it's really depends. It really depends, in my opinion, on how people look at life, and that also influences how they try to cope with the challenges of life.
One question, that was brilliant. So I'm going to talk about your recent publication. I think your recent publication on substance use prevention interventions amongst young people in sub-Saharan Africa. So most of the times our interventions, our drug abuse interventions, they are always doing drug abuse campaigns. So we go on the streets and we preach the gospel of we preach the gospel of drug abuse, and we walk on the streets, we go from one place to the other, we carry placards and stuff like that. So do you think drug abuse campaigns are effective? That's the first part of the question. Like campaigns like that, do you think they're effective in addressing this problem? And then second question is there, based on your study, is there any method that is more effective? And then lastly, is there any age? Is there an age limit for when you can actually start abusing drugs? That's the three questions.
It's a tripartite question. All the stuff from the first part.
Okay.
Campaigns effective. Now again, it depends on how we define effectiveness. Okay. I've always thought about this whole thing about drug use prevention as, again, a tripartite issue. The first thing is we want to get into people's head. Now, I don't mean that in a negative way, obviously, but we want people to know we want people to know that something is happening. We want to also get into people's hearts to change their attitudes towards it. And then finally, we want to get into their hands. And hands here is symbolic, to get people to take action about certain things, sometimes taking action about themselves, sometimes taking action about other people. Now, in my earlier days of research into substance, I've always thought, well, this is not going to change anything. This is not doing anything. It's not solving any problem. But I mean, they say, as you get older, you change your perspectives about things. And now I think it depends on how we're going to measure effectiveness. So in terms of getting into people's head, or getting the word out there, that's important. Those campaigns, people hear it even when they're not looking for it. For some people, that's the first time they're going to hear about, oh, this drug is a problem, or that's the first time they're going to know that what's happening in my household with my child is something I should be concerned about. And that's a real thing. So at that level, at the level of getting the word out, you could say that campaigns are effective. Campaigns prevent people from using drugs. Now that's a very different question. And unfortunately, from my research, we didn't see nobody ever, and of course, this is a very key thing. It's difficult to measure the impact of campaigns. For example, if we go around the streets and tell people about substance use, how do we know that it has changed anything how do we know that it has changed anything? How do we measure what impact it has? How do we measure the effectiveness? So now I'm actually veering off facts now to more like inferring, because I have not seen any study that went around measuring, oh, we did a campaign and then we went to measure the impact of that campaign. Because by the fact that it's a campaign, like a roadwork, for example, means you not even have control of people who see what you're doing. Some people are in their cars and when they see a placard, they see a banner. Some people are just walking by on their lying on their bed and looking through the window and they see things happening. How do we measure what impact that has? So obviously we can tell that it gets the message out. But in terms of having people change their practice, not really. And I can't actually tell because that would be conjecturing. But I don't think, inferring from the circumstances, even because even coordinated programs struggle, I would think that a walk that they just walk past you for 20 minutes, it's not likely to get you to change your habits. Yeah. So in terms of prevention itself, like effectiveness, I don't think it is effective. But of course, when the component is combined with a host of other things,
Other
then
things
look at
could be okay.
effectiveness, like
Okay,
coordinated
thank
programs
you.
and everything. Yeah.
Okay, so you would say that coordinated programs or let's say maybe individual focused programs might be more effective in curbing. Okay.
Yes, and that's what our study actually looked at. And obviously, of course, we know that school-based programs are the most used, especially for young people, and for obvious reasons. And when you get to a school, you have an opportunity to meet with loads and loads of young people at the same time. So that means it's cheaper, it's more effective. No, not effective now. It's cheaper, it's more efficient. Now, because I use that efficient in a very late term, but it's easier, it's more cost efficient. You don't have to go and meet people from house to house. They're all there. They come to school by themselves. It's where they would normally be. Now, the problem with that is when we looked at the studies, because what we did was a systematic review. When we look at the studies and the reports of all of these programs that we had, and this is not just Nigeria only. There were 3 studies. There were 3 reports from Nigeria, 3 reported studies from Nigeria, and then there were lots of them from South Africa and other parts of sub-Saharan Africa. What we saw was they were actually not reporting any effectiveness. The program after 1 year didn't seem to be changing. It didn't seem to change the drug abuse behaviors of people. Again, this is a very funny field in the sense that we're trying to measure something that has not yet happened. It's prevention. So we're looking at, okay, well, at the beginning, only 10 people were using. If it climbs to 20 people, then, well, so it's not very easy to look at on this, look at it on a scale. But what we saw was most of these programs were not effective, school-based programs. But then what we discussed, we kind of like looked at how things have worked in other parts of the world. And we also found that other programs that were more effective, they were more individual focused, and then they were delivered by credible sources. But by credible sources, I mean people who have the facts, people who have the facts and are perceived by the people who are receiving the information as having the facts. So there's one thing to have the facts, but
one thing for people to believe that you do have the facts.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's the thing. So credible sources was very, those are 2 things that underlined it. So we actually did recommend that, of course, the schools are a very good way, but maybe we need to categorize these things, categorize people based on risk, and then people who we find to be at particular risk are brought in for more individualized sessions. So sessions that are tailored to fit their needs, because that's the general thing for everyone. There's no one size fits all approach because people are struggling with these things a bit differently. So more individual focused, even from a group. You look at the group and then we're able to identify people who are at particular risk and focus intervention more on those people. So that's what we kind of recommended from, at the end of that study.
Okay, thank you very much, Andrew. So all of these things, what we are all trying to achieve is a drug-free society, really. But there seems to be a lot of limitations. So off the top of your head, what would be the major limitations, or what do you think are the major limitations to having a drug-free society?
Well,
the questions are not tough, are they?
because I think that as long as there are human beings on this world, we're never going to have a 100% drug-free society. Now, this sounds very anticlimactic because people always talk about drug-free society, but let's be real. The thing about drug use and all of these things, it's almost as old as man itself. So, I do not think. I mean, of course, when we use the word drug-free, when I think about the word, I think about it in a relative sense. Where fewer people, fewer cases of ill health due to drug use, and fewer cases of death. That would be progress. But I think one of the key things one of the key issues here really, it's really basically, people need it's more understanding, not just more information, but more understanding. Because there's this I read this paper. It's been long ago I read the paper, but they talked about why changing behavior is difficult. And they say people just come around and say, well, if we tell them all the facts, well, to change their behavior, well, or people just, if we tell them what to do, then everyone will know what to do. Or if we tell them how bad this thing is, then they wouldn't do it. But then obviously for people who are Christians here, and I think there'll probably be some similarities in other religions as well, in Islam and other religions, we don't always do what we want to do. St. Paul would say, well, I find myself wanting to do something. I know I should be doing this, but I'm not doing it. And that's really the understanding of what this is. And really people using that understanding to try to help people to see through. So I just think for me, it's really the lack of understanding as to why behaviors are the way they are.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, this has been really, really good. Okay, healthcare practitioners tend to abuse drugs a lot. One, because you have access, which was one of the points that you mentioned at the beginning. So, real problem. And then secondly, what can we do as young people to address? Okay, so most of us on the continent, what can we do to just keep assuming okay, nobody has drug abuse problems, nobody takes weed, nobody relies on a pick-me-upper in the morning to get things going? Like, do we just not talk about it, or what can we do as young professionals?
Right. I mean, I lost you there. You were breaking for a bit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so my question was about drug abuse and misuse amongst young professionals. We don't like to talk about it. We like to pretend we're all fine. We like to pretend that nobody wakes up in the morning and, well, like nobody at all wakes up on some days and you feel, oh God, I need something to get me going. But because you're medical professionals, you have access. So is this a real problem, or am I imagining it? Am I imagining that it's a problem? And if it is, what can we do as young people?
Well, I don't think you're imagining that problem. I think it's a real problem. The scope, how big a problem it is, I cannot tell you off the top of my head, but I know it's a real problem because I've actually seen a couple of studies that have talked about substance use among healthcare professionals. So it's definitely a real problem. And then of course you talk about the thing about access. Healthcare professionals have access to these medications. And I think what we can do, first of all, is really looking out for each other, because sometimes, when people are down, they need people to pick them up and they need people to lift them up and lift their spirits up. But there's also the issue about monitoring of drugs from the factory to the blood, to when someone is taking them. So if we have all this process where all of these things are monitored, not one tablet should go unaccounted for. Now, this is a very tall order in practice, but really trying to put that together. And I think this is very important, really. And this kind of leads us to another very key point that I think I just also need to note as well. So this is not just affecting healthcare professionals as well, but this thing also spills into the larger society. When drugs are not accounted for, when people get access to drugs that they shouldn't get access to, then that's a problem. I'll tell you a story. Well, I got a job at at a place at some point during when I was doing my youth service, and well, I asked a few questions. Well, the next thing I was fired the next morning. I got a text saying, well, we think it's best if you don't resume, if you don't come back. And I think all of these things kind of, well, we have to be able to monitor the use of drugs, especially pharmaceutical opioids. We have to be able to monitor them. We have to be able to monitor people who get them, who gets them, and that includes healthcare professionals as well. Who is using them? Who is getting access to them? Um, Pharmaceutical opioids are supposed to be stored in a particular way. There's supposed to be a poison cupboard, and if anything is taken from there, there should be a record that's been taken. And I think for young professionals, that's what we know. There's the From K, or the disposal of poisons book. You have like distribution records, which if you get drugs, for example, now that could come and audit your facility and everything and things like that. So we need to be focusing carefully on making sure that all of those records are kept, because that doesn't take away all the problem, but it does when people know that they're being, when we know that these things they're going to ask for them, they're going to be questions asked. It does kind of reduce the risk of those things happening. But I think substances among healthcare professionals, it's not something that's been imagined. I think it's a real thing. It's a real problem.
So that leads me to my last question. Do you think regulators need to do more? Like when it comes to this, like what can they do better? What can regulators do better? Again, I think ease of access is a major problem. Ease of access to these things. You do well. I don't expect you might not be so surprised based on some of the studies that you've carried out. But places where people get these medications, these drugs and stuff, it can be very surprising. So do you think regulators need to do more? And if to prefer a solution, what would that be?
Well, yes, I mean there's always room for improvement, but the first thing is really looking at what's already been done.
Mm-hmm.
I know in Nigeria, drugs are, Nigeria is a signatory to the three big, conventions: the 1961 Single Convention on Narcotic Drugs, the 1971 Convention on Psychotropic Substances, and the 1988 Convention on illicit trafficking of illicit movement of narcotics and psychotropic substances. And under this convention, drugs are regulated in such a way that certain drugs can only be used at certain levels. And as they're being used, there's supposed to be like a trail, a record of how they are used. Now, NAFDAC does this. I know that NAFDAC does a lot of this, and obviously the NDLA as well, and to some extent the Pharmacists Council of Nigeria. I think regulators are actually doing a lot. But I think where all of this is breaking down, obviously people who are out to game the system, to find the loopholes where they can push things through. But I think for me, I think especially on a day like this, I would really be more. Of course, the regulators need to close the gap, but my point of concern really is really to practitioners at this point. And the reason why I'm saying that is we need to sanitize the drug distribution system.
Mm-hmm.
And much of that, to be honest, comes down to practitioners. It comes down to pharmacists, to big pharmaceutical companies. Who are these things being sold to? Who are they being sold to? And are we making sure that they're actually using it for what they're meant to be used for? Nigeria is a very big place. There's 200 million people, 200 billion plus people in Nigeria. But even at different levels, as the drugs cascade down to the population before it gets into the individual hands, of course, it's not news, for example, in Nigeria, that you can actually get a bottle of codeine from a convenience store down the street by some person who is he's not legally licensed, he didn't attend any, probably has not even gone to secondary school. How is he getting it? Obviously, everybody talks about, the regulators need to do more, but people, most of the time, practitioners sell this to people. Practitioners sell this to people. Practitioners sell some prescription-only medications without prescription.
Mm.
So I just think, and then of course, there's also the issue about patent medicine dealers as well. I think they have to be more regulated. I did a study once about I kind of tagged it. What did I call it again? But it was this kind of drug dispensing, where single dose, unit dose dispensing, not unit dose dispensing now, but they put like doses, like it's one dose. It's not unit dose dispensing, that the pharmaceutically accepted unit dose dispensing that we know, but they just put it like, well, they set it together, inappropriate polyunit dose dispensing. Like that's what I call it, IPUDD. But they just put it all together and say, well, this is body pain. They put different stuff inside together, tied together in some small finger nylon, and it's sold for 50 naira or 100 naira. Well, the problem is some of those drugs that are in those bags are not even within the PPMD license, that's the patent medicine dealer's license. So they should not even have it in their premise to even start with, let alone be able to sell it. So I think all of these loopholes are the areas that needs to be plugged. People who there are people who have no business with these drugs should not have them, neither for use nor for sale. And so if we're able to restrict the distribution system, sanitize the distribution system, then maybe we have a chance of cleaning things up. And again, this falls back to professionals, to practitioners, in the end. So I think that's what I would say. Yeah, but there's always room for improvement for regulation anyway. But I think at this point, the need to sanitize the drug distribution system, it's not just a task for regulators alone. Practitioners must take the bold step, Yeah, I think that's what I'd say.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Thank you very, very much for all of your insightful responses. So if you have questions for Andrew, you can just type them in the chat box so I can read them out. And while we prepare for the next session, which is with Humphrey, we're going to take that after the question and answer. So I think there's a comment here in the chat box from Shedrack Shanks. It says, hello, it is good to be here. Drug abuse is really an issue, especially for us in Northeast Nigeria, and has been a pillar for insurgency and banditry. I think that's an interesting comment. So do you think that's a thing?
Yes, obviously it is a thing.
Would there be like a relationship between?
Yes, there's obvious relationships. For one, it has been known, and there's been some reports about terrorism and terrorism funded by illicit sale of psychoactive substances. So there's been talk about, I don't know if you've heard about Captagon. It's like a cocktail of stuff that has been shown around, like terrorist group that they use, and then they sell it, illicit trafficking, to raise funds for the illicit activities. And obviously some kind of things, there's also the use of these substances can actually dull perceptions. They can make people, they can actually change, or for as long as the person is intoxicated, they can actually carry out acts that people would normally not do if everything is fine.
They're more prone to suggestions in that state.
Exactly. So yeah. There are links usually. There are links about that. Yes.
There's another comment here that says, talk about the relationship between drug addiction and genes. There are evidences that some genetic factors are responsible for increased vulnerability amongst individuals. Do you have any comments on that?
Yes, I mean, on a pharmacological level, what we're talking, I think when it was 300 level, 200, the first pharmacology classes that you receive, where you talk about, alcohol, the metabolism of alcohol to aldehyde, and then to, and I talk about like the aldehyde dehydrogenase, and why some people can actually produce lots of it, and because they have lots of it, then they're able to metabolize faster than other people. And so whether some people who have less of it, and then it's not, they have metabolites building up, and then they are the lousy feeling, if I may put it that way. So obviously there are definitely, I think, genetic links to this. But then again, genetic links do not necessarily mean that people will do something because they are genetically coded to do so. Genetic link is not a foolproof system. For example, because both my parents, my father and my mother, this on a hypothetical note now, are hypertensive, does not mean that I must be hypertensive. So genetic link means you're predisposed. That's true. But then, of course, especially for behavioral issues, there are always mitigations for that. But so I think that there are genetic links. I haven't really zeroed in on that, but obviously from like preliminary pharmacology, our genetic compositions can actually play a role in how our body handles these substances. So obviously on that point, you could say there are genetic links. But again, I just like to reiterate the fact that genetic links are not. It's not like it's I did it because it's written in my DNA. That's not the way it works. So yeah, so I think this is kind of
thank you for adding that last part. I was going to add it if you didn't. So thank you. And just to wrap up this session with Andrew, my last question will be: what can young people do to help this fight against drug abuse? Like off the top of your head, low cost things, easy to do things that young people can do to help address this.
I think low-hanging fruits. The first thing is know the facts for yourself and live right for yourself. And the reason why I say that is because if you're not doing the right thing, it's difficult to help other people. So the first thing the change must begin with ourselves. So we must actually begin to look at the issues from our own perspective first of all, and understanding ourselves and putting those things, all of these things we're talking about, knowing the facts for ourselves first, and then obviously we can actually cascade that to other people. Other things we could do, we could watch out for people who are struggling and help them. If it's to refer them to proper services, signposting to proper services, because sometimes we can actually we always want to help, but sometimes good intentions do not always do good things. So really knowing the fact and knowing where to refer people to, signposting to the appropriate services. So for me, I think it would be knowing the facts, living right, and then helping other people find access to proper services.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I agree with you. So any other question that comes in at this time, we'll take it at the general section that we're going to have when we're done with our discussion with Humphrey. Thank you very much, Andrew. You can go around because we still have some questions for you as we proceed. So thank you very much. Please, we can comment in the chat box how this first part was, if we were able to learn one or two things, please. So you can encourage me and I just don't keep talking. Okay, thank you very much, Andrew. Humphrey, are you ready for us?
Yes, I'm with you.
Okay.
All right.
Right. Hi. Sure. How you doing?
I'm fine. I'm doing good.
Okay. So, like we said, this is going to be a conversation. I know that a number of people are looking forward to hearing you share with us, because I first off, I would say having you tag yourself as a survivor is I think it's second to none, because you don't get to see that from people every day, and you also being willing to share, being willing to help others with your story is really commendable. And I'm also glad that we have this opportunity to hear from you. Before we start, just tell us a brief about you, something really brief. Who is Humphrey? Can we make sure?
All right. I'm Humphrey, pharmacist today. I am my final in Obafemi Awolowo University. So, survivor of all sorts of drugs, weed, refnos, cocaine, cracks, blah blah blah. I guess. All right. So I don't know why the connection is terrible. Okay. Man, I don't know what's going on right now.
this way. We try to follow. Okay, looks like we might be having a slight challenge. Please just give us a sec. I will sort this.
All right. I'm sorry. It's the network, Nigerian network, I guess.
It's all right. Welcome back. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
All right. So are we good to go?
Yes, we're good.
Okay, fantastic. So I was saying that we would run through this, would attempt to run through this. We split into three. So the beginning, then we talk about let's say the beginning, we talk about your rehabilitation journey, and then what you're doing moving forward. So my first question would be, well, so this, my first question to you would be, so I can split this into two, would be right now, what would you say is your biggest win right now? Biggest win.
My biggest win.
Yeah. What you're most happy with?
Yeah, like my biggest win is, surviving drugs, me being able to stay off drugs for weeks, months. It's over a year now. And then thinking about drugs, I don't go for drugs. Or whenever I see cigarettes, even up to the list of cigarettes, I do not smoke anymore. Then I think, I know that is the greatest battle I ever won, to be able to say no, because it's actually not easy, saying no once you started. That's the truth. So I had to pass through 3 rehab centers before I couldn't. So that's a big win. Now I can save up, memories back, I can focus, good grade in school.
Fantastic. I wanted us to start from that. So, we have a lot of positive side in this session. So if you were asked that, when did you, or should I say, what was your very first encounter with drugs or with substances? Can you recall your very first encounter?
Yes, I can recall everything because I discussed with someone yesterday, and then it was like, how come I remembered everything? I was like, people that smoke, they remember everything. I'm not a drunkard. I was never a drunkard, so it's just drunkards. I drink to stupid and then forget, but I could remember everything. Well, I started my part 2 days. I used to be on fresh channel, flash rate, blah blah. 38 to about 14 chemistry, White House. But I started when I used to teach students in Apex tutors back then, Apex, so I used to make extra incomes. And then there was this neighbor of mine. He was withdrawn from computer after spending 3 years. And then he was in PHA's final year in physical and health education. That means he has been in school 7 years. And then I was just 2 years. Like my year 2, I met him, like I relocated, and then he was my neighbor. So he was always smoking. And then for sure, all smokers are always hungry, whether they have money or not, because it depends on when you smoke. If you are have millions in your accounts, if you smoke at night, you'll be fucking hungry. And you, of course, they don't cook. Like you would hardly see a smoker that cooks. Even if they cook, it should be probably fast Indomie, and then they'll still even add it. So there's no time, there's no concentration. So he was always hungry, and then I was always there for him. Humphrey, please, can you spend me 1K? I'll give it to him. Humphrey, do you have food? I'll give. Then at the point, it was like, oh, Humphrey, I can see each time you come home from school, you're always dead tired, you sleep. Come on, don't sleep. Oh, you should be on your toes now. I know you are trying, but come on, look at Felana, look at Davido, look at Whiskey. Can't you see they are smoking? Like, oh, they're dry. Or just, I mean, myself, I was like, no, no, no. Then I still had my willpower. Like, if you've never like tasted it, yeah, I still had my willpower to say no. Before you place good or bad, you still have that power to say no. Now, but it was my next door neighbor now. So naturally speaking, I was a secondary smoker. Like I was already like it was already affecting my brain, whether you like it or not. So if you actually have a neighbor that is a smoker, you're already a victim. Like your willpower will be decreasing. That's just something people don't know. And that's the reason why if you go to parties or nightclubs and then you are with people who smoke, you'll be like, no, one day, it's already in your system. So to cut the whole story short, after like 2 months of persuading me, and then his own motive is to make me join him. So I would willingly always give to him whatever he asks. That's where the puff pass rule comes in. Like, take, that means you are now my brother. And then that's it. You just like, you are now more like, in a church or in a cordial relationship. We are like kissing now, like do not mouth to mouth, but okay, what I have in my mouth, I give to you. So he was just wanting me to bend to his rule. So I'll start giving him money and that kind of thing.
I guess.
After like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or 3 months rather, our neighbors, like 1 year now, 1 year is house rent. After like 3 months, and I'm like, okay, kept persuading me. And then I on my own, I never wanted to smoke. I never believed in smoking, good upbringing. But I was this kind of person that I was also inquisitive. Like, plus I was in pharmacy, they will come pray, you don't take hard drugs, it affects your brain, it does this. I'm like, okay, well, I could just give it a try, just one time, and then just one pop. But the unlucky part was I started with Colorado and I did not know. Because in my mind, I was like, let me just even try this thing. If there'll be any changes, like what do people actually like say about smoke? Like they said, you'll be more high or you'll be. So I took the first puff. That's the very first puff. Yeah, Colorado is weed, actually, like a form of weed. That's the strongest weed. Like, but when you look into maybe Tunde Not or your normal Instagram, you see people, and they will be shouting. Even there was one military man, after people like just that's the strongest.
Okay.
And whenever I hear Magby.
Okay, so your very first
was Colorado.
Was with a neighbor who introduced you to possibly the strongest form of weed. Now, so whatsoever consideration was going to be given, your sensitivities were already really, really heightened. So it wasn't like
you were my neighbor.
At the very, very top. Okay. So and then so that was where it started. Then going through looking at it, were there times you felt like you wanted to stop? Were there times you felt like, I want to stop this? Like how many times did you attempt to stop?
All right. Right from day one, I would wake up every day and be like, okay, Humphrey, you are going to stop. You are going to stop. But I couldn't on my own willpower. We cannot help ourselves. Like once we are addicted to it and then take just one puff. I always wanted to stop, but then each time I tried to stop, I no longer enjoy what I used to enjoy. I no longer enjoy the normal movies. I no longer enjoy friends, companions. Like I never longer enjoy your conversations because your conversations would literally not make my dopamine, the brain, the dopamine, the pleasure, whatsoever. So things are not just, I was not interested in stuff again because my pleasure, like the brain, whatever, has overshoot. So I was just there. So the only thing that would make me happy, I know happiness is relative, right? But that would just give me this fake excitement or just like euphoria now, state of euphoria is not until I smoke. And then if I don't smoke as well, I cannot eat. So it is not by maybe I try too many pills, like okay, trying to, all these pills that'll make you eat. It doesn't work again because I already fucked my system up and then it's in my system. Then also I couldn't sleep, except because after the weed, I started abusing other drugs like Refnol. That's the mind eraser or the date rape drug, that is even normal. But
Okay,
I always wanted to stop. I couldn't on my own.
Oh, okay. So at what point, where, or should I say, what were your biggest influences? So I'm sure that the times you tried to stop, there were probably reasons why it was that difficult. So what were those influences that made it so difficult for you? Like, were you still surrounded by people?
No, actually. Funny enough, I've always been on my own. Like, I'm always a one-man stuff. And then may so rest in peace, the same guy that introduced me to the Colorado, he lost his life like 3 years ago. He ran into a trailer farm, Anyton knows him. But my son rest pay. Anyton now. So he was a very good friend. So just I and the guy, and then of course I knew the dealer before he left school then. So nobody, all the friends I had were not into drug. You are not, you are a friend. So many other pharmacists then. So you guys do not even know what it means. So I was just in my own world. And of course, I couldn't have explained to you because you would not understand. I tried to explain it to some of our friends back then, like, okay, I'm smoking this shit. And then they'll be like, just stop. But it's not easy to stop. You get so I just be on my own. So nobody influenced me actually to stop.
It was just difficult.
To stop. So, you cannot stop on your own.
Okay, so what was the breaking point? Like, was there any point where you thought, okay, I need help to make this stop? Like, was there any point like
yes, that? I've always gone online to look for, my very first search online was, can I ever get out of drugs? The thing is, it was not just, Colorado is even small. Weed is small, weed, loud, Malikush, SK, all those, anything with down is small. I told you.
Or grades?
No, those ones, okay, like Colorado, SK, Skunk, Malikush, Loud, Canadian Loud, all of those are like normal weed. But that's where that's one like just normal weed, you mold and then you puff pass. And then from there, I graduated into, taking Refnos. After you smoke, you have to drink now. So when you smoke, you don't take Coke or you don't take Fanta. Even if you take Fanta, you dissolve something inside. So I go split eye. So I would have to dissolve Refnol. And Refnol is a very dangerous drug. Refnol now. Refnol is used to calm, state of amnesia. And then people that actually use it for rape, date rape drug, you give to a girl, you dissolve it. And then after 20 minutes, you go into state of amnesia. You don't know what you are doing anymore. And then that's why most ladies fall victim of rapes and then they don't even know what's going on. Yeah, that's Refnol. Rufinol, read about it after this. So, but how from the smoking, I graduated into cocaine. How? Very easy. Once you are a smoker, you can be addicted to cocaine. How was it? It was laced into normal weed for me now. So, forget about the fact that Naira Marley said loud is good for the health. It's bad for the health too. But you meet some people, they can list anything inside. All these drug dealers, they list cocaine inside for me the first time. And then when I took it, I was like, wow, this is the best strain of it. And now, like this is the best strain. Then I kept on patronizing that dealer, started calling him all the way from Island, Lagos to Ife. That was how bad it is because every other smoke could not feel. I did not know I was already taking cocaine. Then before you know it, just came out and they were like, I'm doing shit. I just take this cocaine. Then from cocaine, just once you're into drugs, just unlimited. Just unlimited. So and it all starts from cigarettes, from weed. So that's it. So depending on how much money you have, then it's unlimited. Like wherever you can. So yeah.
Okay. So at what point did you realize and admit to yourself that okay, there's a problem? Like, what was there a breaking
I
point?
never admitted throughout the, those period that there was a problem because I was always fine. That's why when I was graduating into it, I started seeing world different. Like I started seeing this world, this normal world as the slow one. School is calm. You guys are wasting your time. Okay, what the hell is going on? I never wanted help. Like the way I was saved, it was God's grace, God's help. I ran like cycle. It got into me real bad. I couldn't sleep for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I was on the island, taking cocaine. I lost it, lost everything. It was at the Evans Hotel, Lagungi, phase one, opposite Oxford Hotel. So I caused commotion in the Evans Hotel, Nevada Hotel, and then all in Lagungi. Like today, they would still remember. So I stabbed myself in the hotel from the third floor downstairs. That was from 501. And then they all knew I was on drugs. Then they tried to get me help. They called some NDLEs and then some police officers. But then I was hallucinating at that point. I thought probably they wanted to kidnap me. And I fought with the police. And then the NDLE, it was so bad I threw stone and then it destroyed their van. Then within 2 days, the Sha just arrested me. And then thank God for my dad. My dad came through. I was in station on the island for 5 days, like disturbing all of them. I have to get out. Like, what the fuck is happening? Did I not pay your hotel bills? Like, at least I pay every 3 months. You get that kind of thing, like paying almost like $500,000, blah, blah. I never wanted them. But my dad is actually this into force. And then he told them that, okay, don't let him go. That's not my son. Like, something is definitely wrong with him. Don't let him go. My sister called. I was like, I don't know who my sister is. Like, I was just trying to come out. They asked me who are my parents. I was like, I don't know my parents. I don't know who they are. But my phone, I came in with my phone. So my dad was calling. My sister was calling. They were like, do I know? Do you know of this phone? They were like, don't talk to them for it. So they will come to the cell and be like, do you know? Like, your father is calling. I said, that's not my father. That's not my mom. That's not my father. That's not my sister. Because I did not want them to come and see me in that position. Because I told them I was in school. Like, that's the lie, that I was in school. So for my dad to come there, like, and then I was already in still, like, I was already messed up. So I never wanted him, but thank God for God. He came, then forcefully, I was handcuffed. I was still fighting, like, I'm not going anywhere. Like, where are you guys taking me to? Like, just leave me alone, leave me alone. So forcefully, I was handcuffed, button and chain, and then down to rehab, like, forcefully.
Okay, so
then let me just say this, like, also when I've been to 2 rehab, like more like rehab or mental, do you mental, do TCH. I was there 2017 or 2018 when I had the first saga. That I was writing my first part 5. That was 2018, first part 5 exam, and then I had to leave after my first paper. Like, my lecturers were there, like, Dr. blah, blah, blah. I was like, I'm no longer coming. And then I never returned to school. I did not graduate that set. And then that's when the issue started too. And then at a point when I went to school to destroy stuffs like that. And then I remember going to ATCH, the medications I was placed on, I was not responding to medication because I was literally given probably the normal Refnol 2 pills or being injected, the normal sedative drugs. And then I've abused all those drugs. Like, whatever drugs they gave me, all these antipsychotics. Yeah, that's what we use. Cocaine people, like people who are in cocaine, abuse all these drugs to, like, do you get what I'm trying to say? Like, when you take cocaine, like, you'll be excited, you'll be restless. Those are the side effects of cocaine. Irritability, crashing your body. So what you need to calm yourself are those medications being used in psychiatric hospitals, like, that gives the extra pyramidal effect. But I've already over-abused those stuff. So when they were even giving me, I was even happy. Bring more, I need more. So I'll just cash in cruise and cash in for there. I never,
so
I never responded.
Yeah, let's talk about the rehabilitation journey. You mentioned that we're at OHCHC, the health center. Do you think that rehabilitation centers actually offer enough help? Do you think so?
For my own stage, I went extreme into drugs. They couldn't like. I just did like what they were giving me were the drugs I abused, normal. Like make mention of any drug because once you're having psychosis or brain disorder or whatever it is, you'll be placed on sedative drugs. Like, and those are the sedative drugs I used to take because after taking crack, I could not sleep. Like crack would not make you sleep for 1 week, 2 weeks. Your eyes should be wide open. Then I know those drugs, like just one way or the other. We have different names to it. So those are the drugs I always take up to the point of even injecting myself, blah, blah, blah. So even that's why it did not work. Well, it might actually work for the normal regular Igbo people or you are just a normal smoke, but it never really worked. I feel mental department there for depression, anxiety. Depression, anxiety is also a form of mental disorders. So I just feel like it's just limited to people that are passing through anxiety and depression and not my own kind of ailment.
Okay, but I mean, if people were to have access to rehabilitation centers, they should take the help that they can get, right?
Yes, this is like if you find someone who is in need, like it's forceful. Rehabilitation center is not a church, it's not home, it's not a theater, it's not school. Rehabilitation centers are worse than prisons. It's like you saying, okay, go to prison by will. Do you know what a rehabilitation center is? Like that's the scariest thing on earth. Yes, now because no friends, nothing good there. Like it's all smelly. Like, have you been there? Like, you see mad people there. Like, it's worse than prisons. And then you don't talk to anybody. At least, even if you're in prison, at least you still roll with 1 or 2 people. But there, you're just imagine you're on your own for 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 month. I was in rehab 6 months straight, twice. And that's the reason why I did not want to go the 3rd time. Do you understand? And then it just does not clear off your system at once. I knew they were taking me. I thought they were actually taking me back. So I was already like looking at the pains, blah, blah, blah. It's one thing going to rehab. It's another thing, your willpower saying, okay, finally, I'm not doing this thing anymore. That's it. So rehabilitation center is not just rehabilitation center. It's like you going into a place, being locked up, no father, no mother there. The attendants or the nurse there do not even like you. Because we are not a responsible person. Like for it to like that's what they feel. Like, okay.
So yeah. Looking at all of that, it suggests to me that you must have faced some degree of maybe stigmatization or discrimination of some sorts, because that's what it sounds like. Okay. So how do you handle that?
Well, I guess it's all gone. Like the old stigmatization and all of those was when a class rep repeated part 2, you get that kind of thing. And then funny enough, well, my own kind of temperament, I don't really care about other people's opinion. Even though I repeated and then I was into drugs, I just make sure I dress nice, I look good, I do my thing. You get that kind of, I cared less. So it did not really affect me that way, not me, at least. Like, I was still living fine. Like, okay, but I was just feeling bad. I just wanted to opt out of drugs. I couldn't, but I'm happy now.
Okay. I'm also really happy because we have Humphrey back. Okay, and okay, if you have any question, please you can just put it in the chat box. I would read them out and Humphrey would respond. I've asked some of the private questions that were sent to me, so I'll just read those other questions out and respond. So I'm really glad about your rehabilitation journey and the fact that you are really open about your story.
Yes.
There's some I would like to, for the sake of other people who might not even know how serious it could be or how indirectly you might have gotten exposed to some of these substances. Let's talk about the possible ways, okay, in which people get exposed to.
I like that.
You mentioned your neighbor. I mean, having a neighbor who smokes already predisposes you somehow. And okay.
Yeah, I like that question. That's actually mine. That's
Okay, hold on,
actually
let
my
me read.
area of concentration.
I want to read this encouraging message because it's touching me. And then you have Humphrey, I'm so proud of you and your story, your strength, honesty, and stories inspiring. So hi, my dear, the world is waiting for you. I really, that's how most of us feel
I'm
right now.
coming up. I'm coming up. Let me buy the certificate
Let's
first.
talk about that. Let's talk about that.
Yeah,
How
that's
else?
my area of concentration. Like, everyone is a victim.
Okay.
Everyone is a victim. Now, okay, let me start with the reason why I said everyone is a victim.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I said everyone is a victim is if I did not take it, like if I never took a new leave, like okay, like I repented. Like this is what we do. Like after wasting your money, selling your properties on drugs, the next thing you do is you collide with the drug dealer and then you start selling for the drug dealer. Then you get caught from it. Well, at that point, my life was destroyed. And then I did not mind destroying other people's life at that point. I'm regretting the actions now. Now, if your friend smokes, you are a victim. You can be a potential victim because him himself is already a victim because from that smoke can be released at any time, and then it would be addicted to cocaine. Cocaine is once. So once cocaine is in your body, if you don't abuse cocaine,
when you say cocaine is once, what do you mean?
Like just puff once, just a bite now, just like the apple in the garden of Eden, Adam and Eve, which cuts across all religions. Mm-hmm. Just take one bite, you are naked, your eyes will be open, alertness, blah, blah, blah. So that is cocaine actually in our own world. That apple, don't take that one bite. Yeah, you'll be stripped naked, be kicked out of paradise, blah, blah, blah. So cocaine will be laced, can be laced through with that one is normal. Like you get, and then the reason why most people that's what like the reason why most people in Ife or in the local places are not exposed to it is because it has not gotten to it's only in the rich place like especially on the island, blah blah blah, like that. Then aside from that, in relationships, there are some times when I started dating some rich girls and then I was broke. But then I just needed money from a lady. And then there are so many times in which there are some girls that will be like, or some people that will be like, okay, they don't drink whatsoever thing that has been opened. Even if you are that careful, like you cannot drink whatsoever thing that is being opened. Remember I told you I used to inject myself. It's very easy to dissolve cocaine or Refno or whatsoever. Dissolve it in any water, any liquid. Use your syringe, take it out. Inject it inside Chivita. You get like even coming to, let's assume we're having one-on-one Zoom, and then me, I want to Colombia, you should become a zombie because that's the word. And now I'll bring my Chivita. You even be the one to open it, and they'll be like, oh, nice, this is not open, you are safe. Come on, I've injected stuff in it now. You get, so everybody's a victim. So you get, and then it just once it's in your system. Those are toxins. Drug abuse, they are toxins. Once it's in your system, it will bind to your protein binding, PPB, plasma protein. I did this now. And now we have there's a way to bind. No, there's a chemistry to that. It will bind very strong, and then it's in your system. The only way to leave your system is through the process
for ways to get that
level. Yes, now. And then the only way you can leave your system is through detoxification. And then it's not this normal detoxification. You go, you take chemical, you go for normal. No. All those ones don't really work well. Sure, you get. So that's on that way. Then aside from that, in my YouTube channel, I talked about restaurants. Yes, on the island, I know one or two.
That's the next point I was going to bring.
Yes, now on the island, one or two. Like I know some restaurant. No, for real. I have not mentioned anybody's name. And then I know one day, like it will just get to this point in which maybe NDLA will come and be like, okay, Humphrey, who are these niggas? I'm up. Like, okay, let's just go for the side because so like restaurants, the list, chicken, live, just go search. the Lay's chicken with cocaine. Google search right now, look, or after, just write it down. The Lay's chicken with cocaine here in Nigeria, yes. And then you take a bite, and then that'll be your favorite spot. Like, oh, that place, because you're already getting one pleasure there that you cannot find in every other restaurant. I'm not talking about, and then also we talk about weed cocaine cake. It's no longer weed cake anymore. Like cocaines, birthday parties, you have your cocaine. So after the first layer, I could even do that for my wedding party if I was still into drugs. Have cocaine, cake, bake it. Then the next layer, instead of using butter, just place it with some cocaine, just the next one, or some hard drugs. And then you take a bite. Now, I'm just trying to say everybody's an addict.
Yeah.
No, sorry.
Okay, well, I think everybody's exposed.
Sorry, everybody's a potential
so,
victim.
now, looking at all you're saying now, the only time I'm hearing is that sit down in your house. So is that what you're saying? Like, everybody sit down in your houses. Just
no.
I'm
not trying to say. No, I'm just trying. No, you cannot sit down in your house now. Why would you sit down in your house? The reason why I'm like coming from this is because I passed through it, so I know the core. Do you get? So, like I said earlier, I just in some places now, like it's not. Of course, why would you have a restaurant list with cocaine in probably places like Oshobo? There's no money. They don't have money there now. And but this type, and now there's no. But when you travel out or maybe it's expensive now. It's expensive whatsoever. But everybody too prays to be expensive one day. You get on travel out or even on the island. You stay on the island and in Abuja, and that's why cocaine, drug addicts, from island, you see that they moved to mainland under the bridge. And why? Do you understand? Okay. So this is because I was inside, and then I know the whole cranny about it.
Okay, thank you. So we have some questions here. I'm going to ask you one of these questions. Were you ever in denial about being an addict? And then when did you get to the point that you realized that?
Yeah, of course. Before I finally like stopped, like, okay, I could see, and then, my brain no longer registered a drug. I never admitted I was an addict. Never, ever does an addict say is an addict. Like, even if you look at me and say, "Oh, you smoke," like, except if you've never caught me smoking, I'll be like, okay, what's the meaning of that? Why would it say I smoke? Like, where's that coming from? We never admit, like, we just never admit. Have you ever seen a robber says, okay, I'm a robber, or I'm an armed robber? Like, you get like, except if like caught them once. So if you've never caught me, or is it all this my book? Wait, if you've never caught me, or if you've never catch me, or if you never catches me.
Don't worry.
So if you've never like caught me in the act,
we get the idea.
If you have never caught me, or if you have never catch me in the act, we will cover you. So what I'm trying to say that if you've never found me like smoking, like I'll deny it too. I would even like, what are you trying to say? Are you whining me? Like, where's that one coming from? Are you okay? So I never admitted.
So okay. So now, looking at the theme of today's message, some of the facts, some of the myths that people share about why you should some justifications that people give for taking weed. People talk about.
I want to charge my other phone. Okay. I need to just give me a sec.
Okay, no problem. Please, guys, you can keep your questions coming. You can just share your questions on the chat box, and we're almost done. For folks who are wondering, we just have a few more questions left.
Okay, I'm here.
I see some of your other questions that are more. I think I would be directing those questions to Andrew when we get to the last session. So Andrew, you could just go through the chat box. You'll be able to tell what those questions are. So thank you. Okay, so now let's talk about some of the myths. When you see young people, young professionals, students, pharmacy school was very tough. It is very, very tough. I know that. And for every pharmacy student on this call, I know your struggles. Trust me. I went to Obafemi Law University, and that place was, today's not the day. So I know it's very tough. So do you think there's any truth to it when people say, when you're taking all of these drugs and stuff, they help you focus, give you this laser focus when you're studying, or they help with assimilation? For some people, there are reasons. It's probably it helps with confidence. For some people, that okay, if you need to do something, if you take weed, it helps you be more confident, helps you stay alert. These are some of the myths that we hear. But coming from you, you've experienced it. What are the facts of the case? What is it? Can you all still hear me? Okay. What are the facts? Is this true? All of these things that they say, is it true? Does it help? Are you still there? Okay.
Like 30 seconds. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Yeah, I'm done. I had to, sub again. I did not know my MB was out. Okay, so about focus, right?
Mm-hmm. Confidence.
That's
all of those things.
yeah. Confidence, yes, correct. You'd have confidence because you are living in a dream world already. What is not there, you think is there. That is because it's hallucinations. You are saying stuff. You are hearing voices. Your brain is overthinking. Why? Because you cannot sleep. So what do you expect? You are thinking when you should be sleeping. Like you are reasoning when you should be sleeping. So hallucinations now, like normally effects of, a lack of sleep, it will, so that confidence, you feel like nothing would enter. Then aside from confidence, you will not feel pains. It's normal because you're on, painkillers. Most of the drugs are painkillers, or most painkillers are, manufactured from these drugs, whatever drugs it could be. Just even from weed is painkiller, Igbo, Rev, cocaine, they are all painkillers. So confidence, of course.
Okay.
You'll not be scared, you'll not be afraid. Now, the confidence in this is, I told you now, I had to walk out of my part 5 exam, the first paper. Is that not stupidity? Like, that's, imagine such confidence. Then there was a point I was arrested in. Yes, now there was a point I was arrested in school by DSA. I was in Flow, and then my confidence took me. I was in Anchor because I spent $1 million in Abuguba, in Ubuka. And then I was like, from Flow, I managed to escape. I wanted to see the VC of these are actually live, scenarios. Me alone, I managed to get upstairs with my auntie, like, okay, I want to see the VC. Why am I arrested there? What do you like? Okay, terminate my studentship. I'm not interested again. Is it by you get that's confident.
Okay.
Then aside from that, those are it's actually stupidity, like in the real sense. But then they'll be like, okay, it's confidence because okay, after smoking, they would have the courage or the confidence to walk up to any girl. It's actually stupidity, like you're just being stupid.
Okay. So what I get from this is that it's whatever effect you think you're getting, it's temporary.
It's hallucinations and euphoria effect.
Okay, I get
yes,
it. So that's a
like hallucinations. Then when it comes to focus, when it comes to focus, that's a lie. There's no focus because there's this thing they call jogger. What's a jogger? Like that's what is jogger. No, and they will understand but the smoking here. No, it's a jogger. And now like you would always lose concentration. Like that's the reason why I repeated now. I started having very bad grades. You will not be able to memorize, memory loss, behavioral. Like when it comes to concentration, that's zero. Like smokers would always miss test. That's very miss attendance, miss test. That's the very first signs. Like whenever you have a friend who is always in school, and then before you know it, the person's already missing classes or comes late for like lateness. That's number one symptom. Okay, this guy is on drugs because you always be late. You would always be
now late. let me stop you there. You just made a very important point about friends. There's a question in the chat box. about that relates to that. So I'm going to read that out. So we just take that. It's also one of the questions we have here. Now, this is from Read One. It says, this has been a real eye-opener. More than ever, I can understand the importance of not judging people, especially if you don't know their story. My first question is, what can we do to help a friend who you know is into drugs? That's the first question. Then, as Humphrey explained, his friends simply told him to quit when he tried talking to them. You shared that with us. So how can we do better as friends to people who have this addiction problem?
Okay, good. The truth of the matter is, once we are addicted to it, no matter what you say to us, we can never, because your words will not make us feel better. Like, I always say this, that okay, you can never be emotional with someone who is an addict. Like, we are just in a different state already. So if you like talk from now to tomorrow, you cannot. And that's the reason why I've not been able to help any of my friends, like the so-called friends there. You cannot help. Nobody can help. It's only rehab, passing through rehab, detoxification process that can help. And then when I'm talking about detoxification process, it's not a matter about 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 month. So you even have to be in rehab for months. And after leaving rehab, and then nobody goes to rehab willingly. Even if anybody goes to rehab willingly, after 1 week, the person wants to get out.
Yeah.
So, like, if you really want to help, and then it's just parent, just forceful, just has to be forceful. You get, because I would always say this, that it's easier for a camel to pass through the needle of an eye than for a drug addict to say no to drugs. Or yeah.
So,
That's
so to do better as friends. So what you would suggest is to get them the help.
Report to their
whether they
parents.
want the help or not.
Yeah,
Okay.
by force, just report. Because the first thing they will tell you is, don't cast me, don't let anybody know, don't let my parents know, but cast them, like be their enemy at that point, because they are destroying their lives. And then before you know it, they will no longer have friends, because they would, after exhausting their money, they will scam all their friends to get money for drugs. And that's the reason why most drug addicts are loners. Just imagine you are my friend. By the time I don't have money, I just call you, hey, what's up, Poguns? Can you please let me 10K? I'll give it back to you tomorrow, please. And then you might give it to me. And then, of course, I might call someone else to replace the 10K. I replaced it initially. Then the next day I'll do, Poguns, can you please, there's this project I'm doing. I'm in school right now. I need 100K. They'll be like, okay. And that's it. Once you give me that 100K, it's gone on drugs. And then we cannot be friends again now. You get, if you're my brother or sister, where's my money? You would be on block list. On my block list, I'll block you before you block me. So drug addicts are always loners.
Okay, I get you. So thank you.
Just report them to their family, like someone who can help, their mom, their dad, and then they have to take it forceful. And then also, it's not about preaching, because I was in church, this is not spiritual. Most people used to mistake it to spiritual. No, I was in churches for this, for deliverance, fasting and prayers. No, does not work. And then there's something called withdrawal effect. Once you stop an addict from taking drug, it will be more violent. Okay, that's when you'd even think it's on drugs. And because it's even that drugs at some point, I'll just regulate it, because the brain system is already up, and then you now take the drugs all of a sudden. Then that's when you now see the voracious and voracious form of the person. Because when you stop drugs, it will be more like you are taking like times 2 of the drugs. So that's where rehabilitation center is. Wherever the withdrawal effect starts, your badness starts, you are locked in. And then that's why whenever you go to rehabilitation centers, you see stuff's destroyed. Stuffs are always destroyed. Their materials are always destroyed because of withdrawal effect.
Okay, I get that. And I think that's probably why we need the rehabilitation centers. So
it's a must. It's a must.
Okay.
And
so I think
say no to drugs, you must pass through rehabilitation center, tested and trusted.
Yeah. So there are a number of other questions here, but we are actually overshooting our time a bit. So I would ask that. I'll ask this question.
Okay.
Let me see. Let me look at some of the other questions that have been listed here. Okay. Oh, someone is appreciating your efforts, Rosalind,
Right.
how you've been helping her on her journey. And I just started my journey with him, and it's been awesome so far. I'm gradually lifting from that world, and I am more than grateful for the step. He asked me to document my progress along the way, and it's making me happy. And finally, I'm able to do something with my life. That's great. That's really, really great. Okay, we have a lot of questions about rehabilitation centers. I'm going to come back to that. Yes, there's this question from Nora. It says, this session made me understand the tendency for predisposition to drugs and illicit substances. What measures should someone take to prevent him or her from falling into drug abuse and illicit substance abuse?
All right, just stay away from bad friends, bad companies. That's just, and then pray. That's the most big important thing, because, like I said, you can be a victim knowingly or unknowingly. So prayer is the key. Just pray for God's protection, because, like I said, you can be a victim from anywhere. But most importantly, always say no. Then stay clear from being a secondary smoker. For example, if I were to be taking crack in your room right now, you will not know when I'll be taking it, of course, because you just born at the time. But then, crack is in inhalation now. So once you come inside, and then I quickly hide my shit, because you will not know you are also taking crack, whether I like it. And then remember, it takes just 8 seconds to get to the brain. Yes, now. So I could come visiting, especially, those of you that always welcome people. For example, if I come visiting, and then, crack is just within 5 seconds, you are done. At least, like, you are done. Once I come inside, and then the whole room will be choky, you get, of the vapor of crack. And crack is cocaine plus soda. You inhaling it, it's inhalation now. So either burning or sniffing, it's still inhalation. From the lungs, it spreads to the brain, you get. So you coming in or visiting someone who smokes banana or banku or crack, so you get, you would also be a victim.
Yeah, so taking from that.
So finally, just the only means in which you can be protected from being a victim is this awareness. At least you get. It's true awareness, I guess. I mean, if I was lucky to actually know all of this, at least I'll be very careful. You get. So it's still this awareness. Preach the gospel, like, just let people know, because once they are in it, you cannot help anybody. Like my YouTube channel now, I keep saying it's not for addicts. Addicts they cannot sit down 10 minutes to listen to the nonsense you are talking about, because to them it's nonsense. And then their phones are not even with them, because their phones are with drug dealers. They sold their cars, their phones, so they are not even online. They are chasing drugs. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so speaking of, I'm going to share a link to Humphrey's YouTube channel. He shares a lot of tips about his story so far, and you can actually learn a whole lot from there. And you can also search for "Say No to Drugs Forever" on Google search. It will bring up his YouTube channel.
Humphrey, just says.
Check his story and just follow. He shares a whole lot of things. I don't think I've seen anybody be as this vulnerable about this before. Okay, so okay. I'm trying to see if there are other questions I want to take from here for this session. Okay, yeah. So let's talk about, we talked about rehabilitation. You talked about not getting help from all of those other places that you went to, but eventually you got somewhere and you're able to get help. What would you say was different in that rehabilitation center you went to?
Yeah, the difference was, I was placed on plants, root herbs. I feel that was the only thing I did not abuse, compared to orthodox medicine, where I was being given injections and tablets. My systems was used to, those stuffs. And then I was placed on root herb, that Tradico practitioner. It's also on my YouTube. I went back to do a documentary of the doctor. He was a doctor, and then everything's on my YouTube. So I was placed on root drugs, and then I had to literally sleep for 3 months. When I mean I passed out for 3 months was because the only time I was awake was whenever I want to eat, and then I never knew. That's sedative effect of all these roots now. Like you just do not know, you pass out. But unlike the ref, no, you get. I was given the root tab, the real root that just make me pass out. I'll wake up hungry, and then also the root will make you very hungry. When I wake up hungry, I'll be given food, and I'm going back. So that was for 3 good months. I couldn't get myself. That was the beginning of detoxification. Unlike Orthodox, in Orthodox, by the time I was given injection, like they used to pamper. Like I'm just citing the difference. In Orthodox, they pamper, or sometimes they see that okay, I'm very aggressive, so they'll be very careful. They wouldn't inject me. You get, because you get like sometimes I might even shakara them. She already said I'm mad. I'll be so you get those, even if I am very okay, I just because I don't want, of course nobody likes
that just resonates. It resonates with what you said earlier, that if you're being emotional with a drug addiction.
Yes, you get. Yeah, and all those, injection, you have to be very careful with injections. And then again, in the rehab, when I was in the rehab, Polytox medicine, there's one thing about all drugs, like all the synthetic or manufactured medicine. You have to eat before you take the drug or after you take the drug. You get. So in the hospitals back then, if I refuse to eat, then that means I'm skipping my medications. So yes, now so I literally decide when to take or when not to take, and then they start begging me, blah blah. But the Tradico, whatever, you eat, you are not eating, take the root, because the root also is food. You get that kind of thing. So you don't have a choice. Just take and go.
Thank you very much, Humphrey. We have talked about the beginning, the problem, your rehabilitation journey. So now let's talk about moving forward. Moving forward now, what is it like for you? How do you handle pressure? Say you go to parties, you go to hang out with your friends. How do you handle the pressure that comes with that? With coming in contact with some of these things that you might have been taken before.
Yeah, I know, right?
How do you handle that?
All right, well, I stopped going to parties because, you can never be too careful. Earlier on this year, my next video, I would screenshot some chats between I and my so-called friends. I still have some very stupid friends. I went to a resort, and then it was his birthday party, and then next thing, they were offering me white, like cocaine. White cocaine and crack. There was molly, there was refenols, but thank God I already passed through rehab, so my willpower is back. Like I'm like back to normal. Do you get that kind of, because of the toxicity? But if not, I would have taken. So it was a big no from my end. And then funny enough, the guy actually did something very funny. The guy invited another babe. His girlfriend was there. So because he wanted his own girlfriend to be knocked out and then wanted to do rubbish, he had to put molly inside Chivita. I was there, I was just thinking, I was like, what? And then he had to go and give his girlfriend, so his girlfriend would, you get, sleep off, then he could have time.
Okay, so one of the ways you avoid the pressure is
not going out again. I stopped going out. Like that's the reason why I started my YouTube, because I know, okay, I have to post, I have to write, and then I have books to write, I have, if possible, movies to make on say no to drugs. So I channel my energies to say no to drugs. So parties, I stop, because if I go out, even the slightest alcohol, it will just, it works for everybody. So I just literally stopped that life. No more fun from there. So even if I should make the millions in this world, man, I'm channeling it to say no to drugs, like helping, before now I was actually on radio station now, like Crown FM, you guess. So and then just mobilize. So that's it for me right now. Finishing school, and then joining up that someday, and then fighting those assholes that are destroying the lives of our champs. Yes, I'll be in
Hmm.
front. Like,
I think we all having listened to you today, I honestly, personally, I feel like there's still so much more ahead for
yeah.
you. So I'm really happy that you have some of these things that you want to do and you're willing to keep sharing your story. It's really, really important.
Then
And
also, I stopped contacting my friends. If I know you smoke anything, the best you could do is online. Like, because I do not believe
okay.
in blocking people. If not, I would have blocked everybody. But then you want to talk to me, it's either call online, not one-on-one. You cannot, even if I want to help, because there are some people that are like, okay, they need to help. It's online. Like, okay, what is it? Okay, do it this way, do it this way. That's it. Online. If not, then goodbye. That's it, because that's it. Do not ever come close. Yeah, because you cannot be too careful.
Mm. So in
Like
addition,
when I was in the drug world, then I was like, okay, when I grew up, and then I want to, like, because people make money from drug, calling other people. I was like, okay, when I grew up, I would invent something like an inhaler or a spray, this mosquito insecticide, and then it would be cocaine that would be inside, or crack. And then when I just enter, I'll just spray it in the air.
wow.
That's actually the invention I actually wanted to make, not until God took over. If not, if I was still in the drug. So, and I believe someone out there would be smart enough. And then it's very simple now. It's very simple to, it's normal, like the same way your insecticides choke you.
Yeah.
You get.
Sorry, I'm going to stop you
there.
I'm going to stop you there and just say that.
No. Like, I'm actually like saying, like, you get, like, so we should all be careful, like, 1001 ways
that all of these things can happen. And I think one thing that resonates in all what you've said is saying no, being able to say no to drugs.
Say no. And that's if you have not tasted it too. If you taste the first puff, your willpower has reduced.
Okay, so right now, looking at the steps that you've taken and all of that, how do you feel? How do you feel about yourself?
Yeah, I feel great. I feel great because, like, God spared my life, like I said. I would have died. The saga on the island, then I told you, like, I was in cell for 5 days. I stabbed myself. In the police station, I fought with other inmates, and then they had to leave me alone in one room. You get, and then I also fought to the police, and then I even had, at the point, I had brain injury. They had to, hit my head with one big condo, and then if till date, like, there's just this mark on my head. So I would have died anyway. And then that's the reason why. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. And then that's the reason why right now, like, I am 100% ready to fight against drug abuse. Nothing to hide, everything to share, just to save the next person.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. So I'm going to just, some people asking questions about your the treatment and rehab that you went through. So I'm just going to share a link to his YouTube channel again.
Yeah, but that, it's very simple. Like, that's what I'm working on for my project. Like, it's a route. I went back to Edo State to get the route now. It's just that I don't want to mention the name of the route. Why have I been suffering? Why have I been suffering? Let me become a pharmacist, and then some of us just sit down, okay, and then we have one big rehabilitation center, and then it's just normal route. Everybody knows the route is, well, if I say it anyway, then we just want to throw that.
Let's wait for your
so
research.
We need the patient rights first, 20 years. Then we have this money to, well, that just,
all right,
just,
thank you.
I mean?
So,
all right.
That's the, thank you very much, Humphrey, for answering our questions. I really, really appreciate this. So I'm going to take the general comments from you and Andrew now. I have a few more, just 1 or 2 questions that we'll take. We are like, I really want us to finish in time. Okay, so one of the questions that we've had here was something about nicotine patch. Andrew, do you want to take that? There was a question. Okay, person said, I'm in the community practice and I see patients who open up to me and are keen on getting help, but are reluctant to go to rehab. So I want to know the role of community pharmacists in tackling addictions, ranging from tobacco to cocaine, in patients unwilling to go for rehab. Are there drugs we could prescribe apart from counseling, of course? How effective is nicotine patch in managing nicotine withdrawal? That's a loaded question, but I trust you, Andrew, to do justice.
It's a loaded question, and obviously it's a dilemma that most of us have experienced. If you've been in community practice before, you have the odd person come and say, well, I want help and I need support. And I think in community practice there are steps that you can take. Obviously, we have to understand our limitations as community pharmacists as well, operating within what we can do. I think the first thing I would do would be, first of all, give non-judgmental support, because once someone has actually overcome the odds to come to meet you to talk to you, you want to make sure that you maintain that confidence that they come to you, talk about it next time, because that's the only way you can help if they keep opening up to you. And then the next thing is, there are some medications that we can actually prescribe, but of course, we have to stay within our limits. There, obviously, you need some more information to know what some more drugs that you could use. For example, there are drugs that are used to manage for benzodiazepine toxicity or alcohol toxicity and all of that. But again, this cannot be prescribed routinely in community practice, just because sometimes you need to calibrate how much of the drug is in the person's system before you give them. But generally, drugs like nicotine patches, they're quite effective. And I think Barack Obama at some point in his life was using a nicotine patch. And then of course there's another one called NicoBlock. Now this one does work in a way, you put it's for nicotine only, that's for cigarettes, and you put a drop of the fluid, it's like an eye drop bottle. You put a drop of it in the cigarette stick, and what it does is it reduces the concentration of nicotine in that stick. So when someone is smoking, so you're taking off like 10 or 15% of the nicotine content. So you're actually gradually weaning the person off of it little by little. So that's one. And then of course there's support groups as well. There's always Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous. And I think as a pharmacist, it's quite good. It's quite helpful to know the links to support groups around your area, because sometimes people think that they don't exist, but they do, even in Nigeria. And obviously, because of the kind of society that they are typically not things that they advertise openly. I think as pharmacists, I think it's very helpful to know what resources are there. I know that there are Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous cells in Nigeria, in Lagos. I'm very sure of that. And obviously, the final thing is to signpost. And I just want to touch a bit about rehab centers. I know there's a lot of talks about.
Yeah, there were a lot of questions about that. Rehab centers in Nigeria.
Yes, I'm going to share a link about some rehabilitation centers. When I was working with NAFDAC, when I was doing my, no, that's not correct. I was doing my internship on my youth service in NAFDAC. So let me phrase it properly. I was never like a full staff of NAFDAC. So yeah, but the point is, there are a few rehabilitation centers in Lagos and of course other parts of Nigeria. So most of them are actually new. And I quite can relate to Humphrey's experience, and I'm really sorry that you had to go through that, Humphrey. Because a rehab center shouldn't be a prison where you shouldn't have anybody to talk to. Like, that shouldn't be the way rehab center is operated. I cannot exactly, I'm not prepared to talk about like rehabilitation centers generally, but I think what rehab centers do, first of all, there are things that they do. The first thing is you want to look at like detoxification. They want to help you cope with withdrawal symptoms, which is a big problem usually.
The biggest problem.
Yeah, like Humphrey mentioned earlier, once the drug is taken away, there's all sorts of stuff that happen. In fact, some people keep taking the drugs just so that they can escape the withdrawal symptoms. They don't want to take it anymore, but how do they cope with the withdrawal symptoms? So in a rehabilitation center, they want to help you cope with that. And the way they help you do that, sometimes they give you substitutes. There are substitutes like, buprenorphine, the other drugs like acomprosate, that can actually help to reduce the effects of all of these withdrawal symptoms. And even generally, so if you have like a headache, they give you, things that can actually help you manage the headache, help you relax, help you sleep, help you rest. And then the third thing they want to do is to rechannel your energy, to learn new skills. So all that energy, because like Humphrey said, one of the key signs of people who are like getting into addiction, there's this loss of interest in activities that they were interested in. So now all of a sudden, El Clasico doesn't mean anything to this guy who loves football. Or the new album that has come out, it's not important because it does not satisfy the needs of the brain reward center. It doesn't bring enough dopamine levels to get that excitement. So what they want to do for rehabilitation center, for example, is to rechannel your energies, help you fall in love with the things of mere mortals again, if I may use that word, but kind of bring you down and help you rechannel your energies. And then the final thing, this is me making up all of this up anyway, but what a rehab center should be doing. The final thing is help you prepare for reintegration back into society.
Yes.
Yeah. When you get back in, how do you cope? So I'm actually going to share a link now of rehabilitation center. I'll put that on the chat. I've been to a couple of them. I've been to this Christ Against Drug Abuse Ministry, Kadam. There's House of Refuge. All of these are in Lagos. As part of when I was working in drug demand reduction in NAFDAC, we visited some of these centers. And while some of these things are not like there, like gang yet, right? But they're making progress. They're actually documenting things. They are improving their processes every day. And obviously, it's all this effort. And as you keep making all these efforts, we're going to get it right at the end. But I think it's important to emphasize that drug abuse centers shouldn't be worse than prisons, like Humphrey experience. They shouldn't be.
Thank you very much.
Supportive and helpful.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Thank you so much. So I'm going to take our final words now, so we can wrap this up. I'm going to take your final words. What's your message to young people when it comes to drug abuse? Briefly, Humphrey. What's your message to young people when it comes to drug abuse?
To what
young
people?
Young people.
Okay.
When it comes to drug abuse, yes.
Yeah, just say no to drugs. Never those start what cannot finish. Because the first puff, now then you cannot finish it. But whatever, even the slightest cigarette, that's even cigarettes. So, that's where it starts from. Just say no. No. No is no. Wow. No, it's just like a lady who is a virgin. If you don't say no, you get this virgin, that's the end now. Get, and then you always want to. No, that's just an illustration. You understand?
No,
so just say no.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much for your final words. Andrew, final words, message to young people.
Yeah, well, what I would say would be really, don't let the first time you hear about drug abuse be the time you get into trouble. So knowing the facts up front and preparing. And like Humphrey was talking about not going to parties and all that, I think that's really important to know that. But other things as well is to prepare for all of these places, knowing that there are times where you get into all of these places, you know what places you can go to where all these things can be offered. It's been shown that, if you have a drink in a party, if you have your own drink, drinking something, doesn't matter what you're drinking, even if it's a bottle of Coke, people are less likely to offer you alcohol if you already have something you are drinking. So the thing is just really like knowing the facts and getting ready. Don't be ignorant. Just knowing what to do.
Don't be caught
unaware. Just be prepared. Know the facts and share the facts on drugs can help people and save lives, let's say.
Thank you so very much. Thank you. Thank you guys for making this conversation possible. And as we all know, the Young Pharmacists Group, we are a group of young professionals, and we are really big on drug abuse because we believe that we occupy a very unique demographic where we can talk about these things and talk to our colleagues and talk to our friends and our family members. So thank you for staying with us from 4 p.m. till this time. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you, Humphrey and Andrew, for taking the time out to be our guests.
That's the list of rehabilitation centers in the chat now. So
yes, the list of rehabilitation has been shared. So thank you very much, everyone. I'm sharing the link to Humphrey's YouTube channel again.
Yes.
Please don't forget to subscribe
forever.
Don't forget to subscribe and follow him. And also you can search for Say No to Drugs Forever in case of that. So thank you very much, guys. I'm really happy we had this session. Humphrey, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you for thanking me. All right, guys. So everyone who stayed with us from the beginning till now, especially the Public Health Committee of YPG who put this together and were able to pull this through with even all the other campaigns that we have going on today. I think we started yesterday. You guys are doing a fantastic job. Thank you very much. Great Man is the coordinator. I'm not sure he's still on the call, but he was here earlier. And Christian Ugo has also been very helpful on that committee. So thank you very much, guys. And
all right, thank you, Guns. Yeah. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, everyone.
Have a lovely evening, everyone. Right. Yeah. Right. Bye.
All right, bye.
Thanks, everyone. Okay, bye.
Okay. Bye.